Okay, so I think we are good to go here. Let me pull up my chat here too in case something's going on. I see the little live icon here, so I think we're recording and good to go. So the time is 10:04, so we'll get started with today's Alternative Educator Preparation Application Review Committee. Similar to the last time this committee met virtually, Member Peasley, Chair Peasley, asked me to facilitate that because it's just a little bit easier to do that when we have to meet virtually, again, because Melissa's the host of the meeting. But I did just want to confirm, Member Peasley, that we had that conversation yesterday, but just wanted to confirm you do want me to facilitate this for the rest of the meeting. Is that right?
Yes, thank you, Catcher. That will be so much easier. Then we don't have to worry about anybody stepping on anyone's toes or voices. And I thank you very much for taking that leadership role today.
Great. So the first thing we'll do is, just like we normally do, we'll call the roll. So, and make sure, let me also have all of our participants up here so I can make sure if you accidentally are muting yourself. So first up, Member Garcia.
Present.
Member Reedy.
Present.
Member Robledo.
Present.
Member Aragon.
Present.
I think I heard him. I think that's a present. And Chair Peasley.
Present.
Okay, so we do have a quorum. So with us today is Grand Canyon University, and they are here as part of the resubmission of an application. They do have a presentation to go along with that application, as we normally do. And so I think I'm going to hand it over to them. And for our GCU folks, would you prefer, so I have it ready to go here. I could change the slides for you as we go if you just want to tell me to change slides, or I think you should be able to share your screen and one of you should be able to do it. So whichever way you guys prefer.
I thought, Catcher, you were going, this is Kimberly. I thought you were going to share that, but Lindy, do you have the presentation ready to share? It doesn't matter to us, whatever is easier.
I do, sure. I have the same one Catcher was sent. I can go ahead and share that.
Perfect.
It says that I'm not able to share. Can you go ahead and adjust that for me, Catcher?
Yeah, hold on 1 second for us.
Thank you.
Okay, can you try now? And here, you know what, let me stop sharing to make sure I'm not.
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
So I will let Dr. LaPrade start and she'll just share who we have with us on the phone and who's going to help to represent our LEAs today.
Good morning, everyone. We're really excited that some of our school districts, our local education agency, could join us today. We have Giselle Herrera from Tolleson Elementary School, Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Hello.
Maybe wave, Giselle, so they can
Yes.
see your beautiful face. And Kathy Mays, thank you for being here, Administrator of Human Resources, also from Tolleson Elementary.
Good morning.
And then Steve Sarmento is the Executive Director of Instructional Support at EdKey, a charter school here.
Yes. Good morning.
Thanks, Steve. From our College of Education, myself and
Kimberly,
also—
can I interrupt? It's Carol. Just Allison was able to join us at the last minute, so I didn't want to skip over her.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. I didn't see her also on the participant list, so I must not have scrolled down. So Allison Mattingly is here from Alhambra.
Glendale Union.
I'm sorry, Glendale Union. And then College of Ed, myself, as well as Lindy Gaudiano, who is director of our academic programs. I think you remember Lindy from last time as well. And then Carol Lippert, who's just spoke a minute ago. She is from our K-12 educational development, Canyon Professional Development. And along with her is her colleague, Carolyn Flora, who is a program manager. And she was not with us last time, so she would be new to the team. As we move through the slides, I really am going to have, for the most part, Lindy, when it comes to programs, speak to those. When it's about professional development, Carol and Carolyn, and also any questions as we go through this presentation. We really wanted our schools here to answer any questions that you might have from a school site or district site perspective. So with that, we appreciate certainly your time to help us review this and go through it and make it the best program that it can be. We are very appreciative of the questions and the thoughtful feedback that you gave us. It always helps us to think through this. Sometimes, as you know, I'm sure when you write things and you do things, you look at something so many times, you can't see the forest through the trees, if you will. And so it's very helpful to have that outside, that third party kind of perspective and those questions. It really just improves the work overall. So I'm excited to share with you some of that work and that review and help you understand the program as best as possible. So with that, I will turn it back over to the team.
So good morning again. Thank you, Dr. LaPrade. What we've done since last time, before, if you remember, we had one visual to show the two tracks. We felt it best to now separate the two, one as a visual for the elementary pathway. Then the second slide you'll see is going to be that visual for the secondary pathway. With this adjustment, we feel that both reviewers and then potential candidates would be able to fully understand the requirements of each step and how they would progress through each pathway. This is the elementary, this is that secondary. And for both the elementary and secondary pathway, all the necessary requirements are there, all the courses listed for the two individual tracks. And then, like we said, we think the visual is an easier follow for both students and then reviewers. Any questions?
No.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to let Dr. LaPrade speak to the financial solvency of the program. This is something we had questions about before, and we did some research with some stakeholders of our institution and got some really good feedback and tried to best respond to that request as possible.
So thank you, Lindy. The question came about because President Mueller, with his generosity, is offering to provide the funding for this program to launch. And so how, I think one of the biggest questions was, how do we then sustain this? You know, we're very blessed at GCU to be in a very good excellent financial position. And that's even in spite of all of everything that's going on in the world right now, that continues. And so we are very confident that we can continue this program based on what we have, not only in cash reserves and so forth, but also in our growth and in the College of Ed specifically, growth as a college, which is not common in higher ed, unfortunately, these days. The other thing about this program is that it's not an expensive program in terms of, we're not here to really, I want to say make money, but we're really going forward trying to find ways to just cover the cost if it were ever to go to that. And you could see the per participant cost is relatively low in comparison to other programs. So we can do that because of the collaboration, and it's a shared responsibility, and that helps as well. But ultimately it is GCU, I think, as an institution that will be able to really provide that foundation for all. Are there questions about the solvency for either Canyon, for the Canyon Leap program, but from a Canyon PD participant or GCU?
I'm good.
Great.
Okay, it was also asked for some example of an affiliation agreement between LEA and the GCU. So what we've done here is we've just done a quick screenshot. We do have others available in both the pathway applications. Dr. LaPrade, would you like to speak to this or share any more about what that looks like or how long those affiliation agreements typically last?
You know, we usually do that based on the school district. Some school districts want to do an agreement every year. Some, it could be even 3 years. So I would say the majority of these affiliation agreements range between 1 and 3 years. And we do sometimes, if there's certain requests with that affiliation agreement to meet something that the local education agency wants, we will do those to run through our legal and work those out. Because sometimes school districts have their own, their actual own affiliation, but this is a standard one that we use as our template. And then anything outside of that would have to go through both the school district's legal department and ours.
Are there any questions regarding the affiliation agreement example?
I'm good.
Thank you.
Okay, before it was asked for our scope and sequence of courses. What we've done here is again, just tried to really easily and visually share the 4 courses required for the 2 pathways, one for elementary, one for secondary. We feel that the combination of these courses, they're going to be a flexible showing for our candidates of that really layered approach to that foundational information that all teachers are going to need and utilize in their classrooms. With the 4 courses listed for both pathways, we have the 4 syllabi for both pathways shown in the appendix section as well. Any questions?
Thank you. That was helpful.
Thank you. This I'm going to let Carol and Carolyn speak to. It was requested that we share an example of the schedule, of the agendas, or what those outcome materials would look like for that boot camp for those candidates. And that would be that time before they would start and then throughout. Carol or Carolyn, would you like to share any more?
Yeah, I'll start. Thank you very much. So we included for you an entire group of documents in the appendices that breaks down exactly what we're doing by standard as well as by event, along with some examples of activities and outcomes that would be expected from each of the participants as a result of their participation in the professional development plan. So hopefully you've had a chance to review those. Carolyn is on the line because we did have an opportunity. We're really fortunate that we were able to run sort of a pilot of the boot camp with a group outside of those that may be ultimately participating in this professional development with us once this gets approved. And so I just wanted Carolyn to share that it was really very successful. I feel with the week 1 boot camp. So we've run it once. We got some good outcomes and feel pretty good about it. Carolyn, anything to add there?
Yes, I would like to add. So as Carol said, I was fortunate enough to get to do a trial run, and with what's going on in our world right now, I was a bit nervous because it was a 5-hour day via Zoom. However, I will tell you, it was so successful. I got wonderful feedback. I was able to pivot and really touch on those in-task standards and be able to share with them relevant information about how to implement different things via remote learning, virtual learning, and in person. And share a lot of different resources with them for engagement and all the things that we're hoping we'll be able to share during the boot camps to get the participants ready to go into their own classroom. So it was a really great experience to work with them, and I can't wait to do it again.
So hopefully you've had a chance to review. I'm sure you have the appendices. Did you have any questions specifically for us?
I really appreciated the detail that was provided. It was clear, it was helpful, and I don't have any questions about this at this time.
Great, thank you.
And I also want to thank the districts for taking the time out of your busy day and week to come and participate and be part of this review. Thank you.
Oh, here, here. I agree with you, Kimberly. Thank you.
Yeah, we're really appreciative.
Agree. Yeah, it's been a great partnership. The next piece.
I have a
there was
question.
request- Go ahead.
Hi, Joshua.
So do you have in the appendices a schedule or agenda for your boot camp? You know, like what topics were?
Yes, we do. You will find a breakdown of the NPAS standards, and then you will find all the objectives being covered, plus example activities that participants will be engaging in during the boot camp.
Can you point to the page number, please?
Sure, Carol, could you assist me in that?
Oops, sorry, I was muted and I couldn't find my mute thing. It kind of went away. So yeah, hang on one second. Let me find it for you. So if you look, it's should be Appendix 2, Section 12.
Okay.
And so on there, you'll see topics. You'll see the link, also how it intersects with the coursework that they're taking. We did a crosswalk for you to show where the connections are between. Then we did the different standards, exactly what the outcomes of those will be. And if you keep scrolling through, you'll see sample learning activities for those. Then the other part that's contained in the in-task standards are these sort of themes: knowledge, disposition, and performance. So we outlined for you kind of where those themes and how deeply those themes are addressed via each section of the professional development. So that's what that last chart is. The darker the shading, the more highly that particular disposition and theme is addressed.
Yes, but there's not like a schedule or an agenda here. There's like that shows like how much time is spent on each of these topics.
Oh, you want a minute by minute?
Sequence. Yeah, something like that. Is there anything like that?
No, that's not included in the submission, although we have that, we certainly could send it.
Yeah, if you have that available, I would like to see that.
Are you looking just to see how much? Do you want just the agenda? Yep. Let me just clarify to make sure that we send you the right thing.
Yeah, I would like to see it, like the agenda, what each top, you know, like in each session. I'm assuming it's divided into maybe like sessions or professional development experiences. What are the, and you know, what are the titles of those sessions, and then you know, how long are each of those sessions, how much time is spent on those topics.
Okay.
Joshua, are we okay to move to the next slide? Is there anything else you'd request?
That's my only question for right now.
Thank you.
Right.
Okay, we were also then asked to document how the standards we mastered, how content is embedded in the courses, and examples of assignments, exemplars, models, activities, professional development for each standard. This is something we do for all of our syllabi. Those were provided for both pathways, the elementary and the secondary. What we do for all syllabi is share all resources for any course material, all standards, all objectives, all topics, how they're connected, and then how each one of the objectives is met throughout each topic for the separate weeks. We feel with the combination of coursework, the courses chosen are representative in their essential knowledge of the in-demand skills needed for teachers, and they represent diverse classrooms and speak to the high expectations we have of all of our teacher candidates, not just for the two pathways. Are there any questions?
I'm good.
Thank you. This is the same question, just speaking to the secondary pathway. So again, what we've done, we've chosen the select courses because they are foundational in nature to any teacher in the classroom. We also were really intent on creating diverse experiences for those teachers that would then match that student population for both the secondary and then the elementary. Any questions?
Can you explain how?
Okay.
Can you explain how these experiences apply towards different subject areas or content areas in the secondary level?
Sure. So again, with that layered approach, we really feel that with the information provided with those courses, it's really reflective in nature. So as these classroom teachers are in their classroom, they can then speak to different examples they have from that classroom, that unit, that week, that month. We also then like to layer it with that LEA partnership and the PD they're providing, and then Carolyn's PD as well.
Do you all have a scope and sequence of the PD that the LEAs are providing?
I'll let the LEAs speak to that only because it's going to look different for each district, but we do have examples from past years that they've shown with us that we provided in the appendices as well.
Mhm.
Any other questions?
I understand that it would be difficult to provide the scope and sequence for every district charter partner, and I did see that you provided some from one of the districts.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Can you point to the page number, please?
I can, as I am driving, I can't search just yet, but I know down here we have the note that for additional details, you can refer to Appendix 1, Section 5, and that would be page 7 through 48.
Thank you.
That's not the district level though. That Appendix 1 would be anything that GCU is providing. So all of the documents for the local education agencies are indexed in Appendix 3.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Do you have a page number for that, Carol?
Appendix 3 begins, it begins on page 178 of the appendices. And then if you open up the PDF so that you can see the bookmarks, you can easily navigate. They're each labeled for you and you should be able to navigate.
Yeah, so I've looked at these several times and I'm still trying to understand like where specifically an LEA supports the content development of a candidate. I see like lots of areas where they are supporting like the around a lot of like logistics, how to grade, you know, parent-teacher conferences, things like that. What about these areas of like content development, how to teach humanities, science, social studies, those sorts of things?
Allison, would you want to jump in and just from Glendale Union's perspective, and maybe, because I think you're asking from more of a high school perspective, right, Member Aragon?
Actually, even in the elementary level, I'm interested to understand, like, I see the coursework provided by GCU in terms of literacy, but what about humanities? What about science, social studies?
Sure. So maybe, I mean, we have representatives from the LEAs, so maybe if you would each be willing to just briefly sort of share what you do, that would be helpful.
I can certainly support with that for the elementary piece if we'd like to go back one slide.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, so as you can see, there's lots of those methods that are being shared there and the coursework, right? And what we're talking about is an alignment of this coursework to the efforts that are being done at the elementary level. So just to give you some titles of the professional development that we work on with all teachers, and of course these would be included. We have English language arts, content literacy as an offering, a series of offerings, trauma-informed care practices, which is specific to social emotional development, mathematics literacy as well. We do have training on meeting the needs of diverse learners, which not only involves our English language learners as a subgroup, but also our special education students. Classroom management that is provided not only to our newer teachers as part of their induction, but across the year for all teachers as well. And of course, many of the mandated pieces that we need to train our teachers on, for example, the English language proficiency standards, which are newer. So that would be something that teachers would definitely receive to support diverse learners, as well as other social emotional pieces. Suicide prevention happens to be a mandated training now. And so that is one that all teachers would receive as well. So as I look at this list, there's definitely so many of those connections and the job embedded support that the candidates would be receiving from the Towson Elementary School District. Not only our instructional coaches, definitely our support staff at the district level, we have STEM coaches and also new teacher mentors.
Do you have a menu or a list of all of these?
We can certainly provide one, yes.
That would be helpful, thank you. And I believe Marisol has a question in case anyone's not seen her.
So I think what Member Aragon is speaking directly to is I'm a middle school social studies teacher. When I was working even in a condensed teacher credentialing program, there was a specific social studies curriculum and instruction class that would take everything that was said, the district was providing, and it was as far as social, emotional, et cetera, as well as what the higher education offerings were as far as cross curriculum, but it did have space where I was learning how to apply all of that with the content knowledge I was walking into so that I could connect those two. I think that is the piece I think Member Aragon is lifting up. Is I'm sure there is a need not just for social studies, but math and science and et cetera, where that specific type of instruction, not just for high school, but for middle school and quite frankly for K-5 as well, is needed, and having it relate to content specifically.
And if I can add just a little bit, if I am understanding correctly, this connection of the theory and the practice, right? Especially as we're talking about our candidates being in the classroom and applying their knowledge and theory that they've learned in their coursework. All of these offerings that I just listed, they really have a big focus on the actual practice of teaching. So for example, as our teachers are working on the new social studies standards, they're pacing out those standards, they're making the connections to literacy, and they're also making the connections to the materials that they have in their classroom to make it applicable. Also through the lens of the data that they have. So the theory and the application of this theory really happens, or at least it starts in the professional development and as they're working in the implementation into their classrooms.
And as an addition for the GCU courses, because they were written to be flexible, to be reflective of what that teacher candidate's experiences are in their own classroom, they could then speak to what they're learning at that district level or with the additional PD, and then utilize that for different assignments and to show how those objectives are met.
Yeah, and then also don't forget too, there's the aspect that we've included in here that would be one-on-one coaching as well. So as we go in, we will be watching these teachers in their classroom, at least from a Canyon professional development perspective, watching them in their classroom and providing direct one-on-one feedback. So of course, those would be related not only to general topics such as general classroom management and those sorts of things, but definitely helping them to strengthen their practice related to content strategies throughout. And also each of the candidates will be observed via GCU's instructional support through College of Education, where they will have opportunity to have one-on-one conversation relative to that. And then each of the districts has agreed that they will also, either through a mentor or through a principal or both, provides those sort of supports too. But Allison, do you want to talk about, the PLC structure and the curriculum and instruction support that they receive with Glendale Union?
Sure, absolutely. So I believe we provided what happens within our mentor training program, and so that you have that information. So that's the additional 2 weeks that they get before all of our teachers come back. And then we have a full week of orientation for all of our teachers where we go through professional development. I did not provide an outline for that because it changes every year based on the needs of what's going on within that. So I'm sure, as you can imagine, this year it is a lot of virtual learning and instruction support. But we do have mentor teachers that are on every campus. And while those mentor teachers aren't necessarily in the specific content area of the teacher that we might be working with, they do get to help quite a bit with methods and instruction. But to support the specific content needs, we have district level curriculum coordinators that work with all of our first year teachers, no matter what program they've gone through, to be able to get the content support and match the content to the methods. We run professional learning communities so that they get the privilege of getting to work with experienced teachers within our district and get best practices within that. We also continue to reach out to all of our first year teachers every week with not only their mentor, but their curriculum coordinator. So they really do get support coming from both angles.
Yeah, I agree. I think if I had to look at this from I think where the application is really strong is on the coaching side, where I see a lot of evidence that they're the candidates are gonna be coached a lot, and that they're gonna have resources available to them, especially in a reactive sense, in order to increase the proficiency of their teaching in their classrooms. And I see a lot of strength in flexibility and focus on developmental needs of the teacher. What I'm not seeing a lot of evidence of is the theoretical preparation needed to be able to teach in a way that is scientifically sound, and is in the use of best practices and things like that. So I see methods for structured English immersion. I see learning environment as a place where you are offering a course. I see, I believe, special education. And universal design for learning. Those were places. Where I'm not seeing is a lot of strength is right now is what topics are discussed at. Well, I can see there's learning experiences that are discussed in your boot camp. But for how long? To what extent are those things discussed? And then, what specific coursework is being offered through your local education agencies? I understand that there's going to be differences, but to see some evidence from maybe one or two of your different LEAs to see sort of what is being offered in the proactive sense and the theoretical sense on the front end that can then be applied into the classroom, and then bringing in those strengths with coaching and flexibility. That's what I'm looking for at this point.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. Any additional questions? Would you like me to move on to the next slide?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you. This is the documentation requested how leadership will be a component of the program. We worked with our LEA partners to learn more about what they provide for their teachers within their district, and then the Canyon Leap to Teach candidates. I'll let them speak to how they offer different opportunities for those teachers' aides if they'd like to.
I can share.
Thank you.
Yes, so from our perspective, one of the things that we really focus in on and throughout the entire year for all of our teachers, and not excluding our newer teachers and our candidates, is this piece of leadership. We understand that leadership can show up at any time, right? There is no real progression. We know that we have natural leaders and we have those that are in development. So with that focus in mind, there's a lot of activities and opportunities for our teachers and our candidates to participate in that will support them in this development. So for example, the professional learning community. That is something that is done by grade level, but not only by grade level. It can be a vertical PLC as well. Through this structure, we see that teachers take the leadership and are required to take leadership just naturally because they do have to lead dialogue and they have to present data and they have to come to the table prepared to have conversations that are going to really yield results for students. And so we see that as a natural progression of leadership through that PLC structure. In addition to that, we also have many committees that make up our school system, our district system. And some of those are very well attended by, again, a varied level of expertise and experience. We actually seek those out because having all of those perspectives and viewpoints are very important to us as we're really listening to our teachers as they're developing systems and they're enhancing structures. So again, they're open to participate in that, and they not only do give a lot to the team and the committee, but they also learn a lot in the process, and part of that is that leadership as well. And then again, the grade level work and the team meetings that they have, which can be, I mean, even now in the virtual world, they continue. And actually some would say that they have even increased, does support with that piece. We also have groups that work across districts and through different structures. So for example, we are part of the West Side Impact group, and we have teachers that are not only very experienced, but also newer teachers and candidates that support that, specific for leadership through the lens of the content that they teach, whether that happens to be science, technology, engineering, mathematics, English language arts, so on and so forth. So again, we do provide leadership opportunities for teachers in which they find their own way to be able to grow and really reach their potential.
And just to follow up with Giselle's comment, pretty much almost every formal committee that's formed in the district, we always want the voice of our new teachers, of our newest teachers, because they always have such a fresh perspective and the most recent exposure to the strategies, more newer strategies that are out there. So we encourage them at any, principal that's forming anything, if whether it's at the district level, at the campus level, get those fresh voices, because we want to hear from them. We want to make sure that we get their input. So we highly, highly encourage them to be involved as much as possible.
Thank you.
And I can share with Glendale Union that we run a teacher leadership academy twice a year that any teacher can participate in. And they work with teachers not only on their campus, but across our district and administrators across our district. And then we also run an aspiring administrator academy. So for those teachers that are getting into that, we know that they might be a first-year teacher, but they're still looking at the future and what's next for them. And so we do open that up and run those sessions for our teachers who are interested in moving into leadership roles out of the traditional PLC team lead, department chair type of roles.
And over here at EdK, things are a little bit different. We are an organization that has 18 different schools, each of them with very distinct and unique models. We have a STEM school. We have a school that serves primarily homeless students. We have a school with an arts focus. We have a back to basics school, traditional K-12 program. So school leadership at that level is very much involved with this, school leaders and school leadership teams, which include teachers. Each of our schools completes their own school integrated action plan, and that is involved with the school leadership team, which is a principal, assistant principal, if the school has one, and then school leaders, depending on the scope of grade level scope of the school, identifying grade band leaders to represent those grade levels in school leadership meetings. So the teachers are very much involved in the leadership of the school. The PLC structures are in place because it is very much about leadership coming out of the school, with EdKey as the organization there to provide the support services. So we don't so much direct, but provide the support, and that leadership comes out of the schools. So any teacher that comes in there is going to be very quickly involved in decisions and having a voice in the direction the school is going. So we have our mentor programs as well, where we are developing those leaders into teacher leaders and future administrators, but this is all happening at the school level, as each has its own sort of unique program of instruction. Leadership looks, those structures look very different at each school, depending on what the focus of the school is, but is very much part of the culture of each of our schools.
Thank you, Steve. Any additional comments or questions?
This is Kimberly. Steve, thank you for that detail. And I just wanted to kind of share, it reminded me of the foundation or the impetus for developing this program. And that was schools coming to President Mueller asking for some help on how they could grow their own and how we could come together in a really collaborative way and capitalize on the good work that the schools are doing in teacher preparation. They're doing so much with induction and professional development, in addition with the professional development offerings that Grand Canyon Education has, as well as our great coursework in our teacher preparation programs. And so how could we collaboratively bring that together in a job immersed program? And it is very contextual. I think it's the beauty of this program. It also provides a foundation for a lot of questions because, which is why we try and give like the student teaching affiliation. This is the standard template. We have to set some, high expectations and minimums, but it is, again, that beauty of that program that it is customizable in a lot of the professional development that you can teach the Glendale Union way or the Ed Key way. And they can grow their own and yet bring and wrap around that all of the professional development, the learning, the theory, the coaching, and the mentoring of high caliber folks. So, and good programming. So, but it just reminded me of just hearing Steve talk about some of the different approaches, for each of the schools, but they all have this component.
Thank you. Any additional questions? Okay.
I don't have any.
Thank you. Hearing none. Also requested was an example letter of an intent from our districts to partner. So we have provided all of those for each district that we have within our appendices. Do we have any of our LEA partners who'd like to speak to these or add any additional information?
Well, I'll jump in and say, because of the diverse portfolio of schools we have, which not only in programs of instruction, but in locations across the state, recruiting has been very challenging, whether it's finding a teacher that is really interested in working at Children's First Leadership Academy, which has primarily homeless students. So that is a very specialized type of teacher to work there. Our schools up in Cottonwood and Camp Verde, very rural locations, not a large candidate pool there. So we found our recruiting efforts really spread across the state and diluted, and a program like this really helps us develop that other pipeline of candidates. Also, with the specific focus of our schools, a teacher that's interested, has a background in music or drama, would be a great, partnership to get them plugged in at our Arizona Conservatory for Arts and Academics, or we've got our 2 STEM schools. So when we post a position, it is not like we can post a 3rd grade position and then just find the school that has the opening. It's a 3rd grade teacher at Eastmark. So that's going to be STEM focused. So it is, our efforts at recruitment are so broad. This really gives us that additional pool, additional resources. And in my past experience, I've worked with in charter schools with Teach for America, and I see a lot of similarities to this in the support that GCU is providing, that partnership, and I saw that be very successful in getting an alternate route to getting teachers into the classroom with the much needed support. And for me, this was exactly what I've been looking for in terms of a partnership to help us identify those people that we can post as much as we want out on those jobs boards, but this really helps us find those matches. And for us, this was just like a blessing that we had been looking for to find this. We have a great working relationship with GCU, and for us, this was just really continue to further and deepen that relationship so that we can continue to provide high quality education to all of our students, no matter which school or where in the state they are.
Thank you, Steve. Any
Yes,
additional
thank you, Steve.
comments or questions?
I'm good.
Thank you. Also requested was additional details and documentation on the school-based experiences, including rubrics, feedback forms, handbooks, information on how master teachers are trained, and links to those. We have provided those all in the appendices, as you can see listed here. Again, I will turn this over to any of our LEA representatives if they'd like to speak to any of that documentation shared or rubrics and feedback forms.
As with any partnership, the communication piece will continue to be a big focus, right? Because we want to make sure that we're always communicating the efforts and meeting the goals. So we appreciate the forms and we feel that that will be very supportive of the work.
Thanks, Giselle.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you. That is it for our slides. And again, we did want to speak to all the requests that we had from the previous time we had met. So we feel we did that and provided the additional information here. Are there any overall questions again or anything else we can help to clarify?
I don't think so. I'm ready to start with the rubric, if the other members of the committee are as well.
I think we're seeing nods, Madam Chair. So members, why don't we, well, members, do you want to chop this up as we normally do and kind of go through the elementary application and see if there's any questions there? Or do you want to, or are you ready to just take a break here and send me your rubrics, or what's the preference? I want to do a sort of temperature check on how much more detail or discussion you want to have. Maybe we start with.
Perhaps we could go through each of the items and see if, start with the elementary and just go through the items and see if any of us had any questions. Because I had a couple of questions that I don't know that were covered in this presentation. So if we just, and I think if we go through each item, that gives the 5 of us on the committee the opportunity to look and go through each of the items. Does that sound good, committee?
It's fine.
Okay.
Okay. So I think we'll start with the elementary side of this, and I'm just running through the categories here. So the first, I think I'll do them maybe 2 at a time, and then you can identify. So the first 2 are the areas of certification and also financial stability. And if you, when I go through there, if you do have something, you can just chime in or throw your hands up. So any comments on the elementary on the areas of certification or financial stability portions?
No, just an overall comment. Thank you for really addressing all of the concerns that were brought up in the last submission. You really did identify the pieces that each partner is going to be responsible for, which was missing from the last submission. So I do appreciate that and the additional information. So this is just an overarching comment on my part. I really did appreciate all of that. I really think that all the partnerships are going to do their very best to really prepare those candidates. And I know that that content piece is a little, we still have, I know I still have a couple questions on that, but I feel that the partnerships and the LEAs are really going to do the very best that they can to prepare those candidates, because after all, they're going to be in their classrooms and they want to have the best teachers possible. And so working in collaborating with GCU, with the boot camp, with all the mentorship that's going to take place, I think the candidates are going to be in good hands overall. So thank you for sharing that through this submission. I was able to see that this time around. So good job, and thank you so much for all of the work that you guys are all doing. Okay, that's it for me.
Thanks, Daisy.
Thank you, Daisy. I'm going to say ditto to all of Daisy's remarks. So thank you.
Agreed. I just wanted to say I went back through the my previous comments on the previous application and was able to see that you definitely filled the gaps that I had and the concerns that I had expressed at the initial application with the initial application. So just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Great. Glad to hear it.
Okay, keep trucking through. Standards 1 and 2. Again, this is kind of limited to the elementary, though I understand sometimes that bleeds over to secondary for some of these, not all of them. So any discussion on standards 1 and 2 on the elementary portion? I see some shaking.
I had a concern on standard 2, and it applied to the secondary as well. Thank you for providing information on some of the some details, like some of the assignments that the candidates would be asked to do in the courses. I had a real concern about one of them in the course descriptions, asking the candidates to explain their opinion. And the question is, do you feel that there are any students with disabilities who would not be successful in an inclusion classroom? Why or why not? My concern about that is this indicates to the candidates that they have a personal opinion that can be valid, that students should not, that there are some students who should not be in their classrooms. We are in an inclusive environment, and why I could understand that could be worded a little differently to perhaps talk about barriers to inclusion, circumstances under which there would need to be more significant modifications than others. But I think that particular item, Rose, just created so many red flags, because that sets a mindset in a teacher that, oh, I have a choice and I have an opinion, and that should be valid and listened to. But there are students who should not be included. Because as you're preparing schools, teacher candidates, across the state, there are different levels of inclusion. And then we know that there are some districts that are pretty heavy on self-contained programs, but there are others that don't have them. And certainly in charter schools are part of that group. In the charter schools, we don't have self-contained classrooms. Many of us, we don't even have full out resource. We work on an work inclusively. And I just think of the teachers that I work with over the years, and some of the ones that I'm working with now, they take that as a permission to not have to engage. So that was a significant concern for me in that particular assignment.
Kimberly, just to be clear, you're looking at topic 1 DQ2 for the
for the assignment.
Yeah. Okay. Just I want to make sure that I highlight it.
Yeah, that was in the mild moderate.
And so, Kim, I can tell you your expertise would be much appreciated, and we'll certainly take that back and look at it a little bit more closely. But I will say, in all of our DQs, all of our work that students are submitting, these are graduate level courses, and so we set a foundation from the very beginning. While it might be their opinion, they have to always back it up with research, and they have to cite evidence. And so, but to your point, we can go back and look at how that's worded for that and shore that up so that, you know, best theory comes in and it's supported as opposed to just the opinion. But that is a standard throughout all the courses. They can't just say, oh, well, I think it should be this way. Well, that's great. You don't really get an opinion, and you have to support it with evidence and best practice and research. So, and that's why the importance of the coursework. So, but Lindy's in charge of those programs, and we'll take it back for a subject matter expert to specifically look at seeing how we can improve upon that.
Yes,
sure.
Member Peasley,
you.
thank you. As
Yes.
all of our programs support inclusivity for all of our teacher candidates throughout all of them, we for sure would not want to have any question that would cause discourse among any of our students, but we do promote that communication. So thank you, we'll take that. And I think to Dr. LaPrad's note, we can just adjust the language because I think it's an important conversation. It could just be presented differently. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. The question and the topic is it is an important for discussion, but I can tell you the candidates who do not believe in inclusion for all students are going to find the research, because I've read it, that is out there that supports why special education students should be educated separately. So if you can change that, that's just my suggestion to you. And that's just that one single part. Thank you. Did anybody else have any other questions about items 1 and 2? Right. Catcher, we can go on.
All right, standards 3 and 4.
I still just have my same concerns around content knowledge and application of content. Actually, more of the content knowledge piece. I think you all have a really good system for application of content. The practical piece is really strong throughout. I just would like to see more documentation of like what's being offered from the theoretical sense.
So
I had the same concerns, Joshua. As well as there was not an emphasis on math. I didn't see information about mathematics, and at the elementary level, that is crucial. I think that's a hole though in the application process, and we've seen that hole before.
Yeah, we have.
And I agree. It's easier for us knowing that to go back and shore that up, because between the collaborative efforts, from their content preparedness as part of admission and being able to know their content and having those on file, to being then able to put it in practice and realize it. So much of that work at the district level, I know one of the courses Giselle mentioned was math literacy. They're doing that work in those grade level teams, very specific to their teaching assignment, as well as threaded and embedded, throughout the coursework, to reflect on that not only grade level, but subject matter. So I just think, to your point, we could find a better way to address it. I see Carol nodding her head because of the coaching and mentoring. Those pieces, I feel very confident about it, but we didn't show it as well as we probably could have.
Yeah, I think there's some easy descriptors that we can provide for you, Member Aragon, that will help you to see how that's addressed. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I think just evidence from the different LEAs is what would have helped, but also I think I asked this question last time as well. It's like, how do you go into a partnership with, after reading some of the MOUs and stuff that you provided, like is there documentation of like the baseline you give to an LEA saying like, you have to at least provide these things? And I saw a few documents that said like, quarterly checklists of things that coaches should be talking about, things like that. But how long, how much time should be spent talking about leadership and ethics and professional collaboration, that kind of thing. And I'm not saying that those things were definitely mentioned. I just didn't see like the specific areas where like they're actually, being cataloged or documented as far as when they're going to happen, how long, that sort of thing. So that was my only concern around content. Application of content, I did not have any questions on. I thought that was relatively strong.
Thank you for that feedback.
Okay. I think we can go on to the next ones.
Puts us at standards 5 and 6.
I really appreciated the focus on standard 6 on assessment. There was a lot of information provided there, and as understanding what students know and what they need to know and what they have learned are absolutely critical. And I did appreciate the focus on assessment in this category for standard number 6.
Okay.
Okay, ready to move?
Standards 7 and 8. Any questions or comments on standards 7 and 8?
Yeah, when do they learn like just basic lesson planning skills? I saw some references in some of your coursework to like I do, we do, you do, that sort of thing. But what about other types of lesson plans, 5E, other different types of, like when do they just learn like basic lesson planning skills?
Good question, Member Aragon. This is Lindy. That's really threaded throughout, as Dr. LaPrade shared before. That's one tenet that we really like to strengthen throughout all of our coursework for our students. We like to give them a lot of examples of what different lesson plan looks like, a lot of exemplars, and then a lot of experience for them to showcase how they can differentiate. We can highlight that again, certainly. It's really found throughout each course.
We also have our own GCU lesson planning template that we kind of developed from, you know, a lot of different examples, because part of the challenge in our preparation programs in preparing students to plan, teacher candidates to plan, is then they get to the school and it realizes itself in a very different way, and the school district and or school wants them to plan according to their platform, method, scope and sequence, their curriculum. Some of it's still very driven in a paper process. Others are very technologically savvy, and they've got, you know, study sync or something that will match the standards, and it will be all contained within a platform or system. And so we do have that template that embeds the components of planning. But the beauty, I think, again, of this model is that it helps then the districts and the schools from the very beginning in the boot camp to start with planning and then thread throughout and build on it to do it in that job embedded context. So all of those courses have pieces of planning in them, whether it's for English as second language learners, or it's from the survey of special education, all those foundations, from managing and engaging environments. How do you plan to engage students? So to that point, it is threaded throughout, and that template is available for our students because we don't know in most cases where they're going to go. In this case, we do, and so they can embed that throughout. So there is a lot of planning involved, I think, as the districts can probably, schools attest to, but it is also in the coursework as well as in the coaching and PD.
Would you say the same thing for instructional strategies? Like where in the online courses are like, and I think this is especially, once again, going back to my content knowledge questions and concerns around instructional strategies, but you know, where, if I'm a secondary math teacher, where am I learning the proper techniques, the proper teacher moves, the proper meaningful learning experiences that then support mastery of the standards? Where is that happening?
So
go ahead, Caroline. Go ahead.
I was just going to jump in with two things. One, I just wanted to piggyback before I move on to that with the when you were asking about the lesson planning, and that is definitely something that takes place in boot camp right away. And we even address the fact that each district might be a little different. And the nice part about it is that coaching and those ongoing Saturday sessions. So then I'm able to, or whoever's doing the professional development is able to assist in making sure that they're having the necessary components in the lesson plans, but yet being able to adapt them to what their district is asking for. As far as engagement strategies, just starting once again with the boot camp, we spend a lot of time going over different engagement strategies. And
I'm not talking about engagement strategies, I'm talking about instructional strategies.
Oh, instructional strategies as well. Going over different instructional strategies and doing various activities where we're able to apply them to curriculum specific examples, whether it be math or social studies, or I was working with Spanish teachers and so on and so forth. So we definitely start with that right out the gate. And I'm sorry, I'll let Kimberly go on to the coursework.
I just think it's that continuum again from the very beginning, and we launched them with a boot camp, but we also know when anyone starts this work that they're on, I say, a little bit of information overload, right, too. And so that's why I think this coaching and mentoring is so important, but then providing that foundation and theory to them. So again, all those in-task standards are met, including instructional strategies, many of them in that teaching English language learners. The SEI course starts at a very kind of foundational level with strategies, and they move into and build upon those around their content, as well as, again, working with their PLCs at their grade level, at their subject level, along with their Saturdays and their mentorship. So I think it just continues to build. I know working with a lot of new teachers, we have a lot of teachers that have started with subject matter expert certificates. They're coming in and now they want kind of a program to help them because they have the subject matter, and they went in and they realized, boy, this is not easy work. And so we're seeing a number of them seek out programs to provide the pedagogy and to provide that instructional support and help them with the teaching and learning components. But now that they've been doing a little while, the capacity raises for them to understand how important that is. And so it really helps to build over time because they get stronger. And so that's why we have the boot camp at the end as well. It's like everything I didn't know here, I get to know now. And when we all like to be able to go back and do that, right? So, but all the coursework, between the coursework, the PD, and the work done through all the different induction or professional development work that the schools are doing, I think threads it and gives them that a really solid foundation, actually, with instructional strategies.
I'll add in a little bit of, because we do have such diversity in our program, and because our schools tend to be a little bit on the smaller side, our principals are the instructional leaders of those schools. They are in those classrooms regularly, but also we have schools that were in school improvement. So through their school improvement grants, recently adopted, reading or math programs that they're required to implement with fidelity. So all that professional development, those instructional strategies are going to be very specific to that program. So what's going on at our Sequoia Charter School that's turning things around through a school improvement grant, the instructional strategies I would expect to see there would be drastically different from our Eastmark STEM school, where they are very tech-based. It's almost a flipped model where there is so much more independent student work. So the instructional strategies there are going to be very different because of the computer-based nature. So what we would be expecting is that teachers that are coming to us, we're going to be equipping them and providing that coaching, support, and training based on their core programs to have the instructional strategies that they need. I know there are general best practices, but depending on which school they go into, they're going to be walking into a very different type of classroom, very different type of student population. So in terms of lesson planning, instructional strategies, all of that is going to be handled at the school level. And as I said, because we tend to be smaller, we have the principal, the assistant principal. Some schools have an on-site curriculum specialist to provide that coaching and support. Also, we are focusing on the Danielson framework. So that is our evaluation tool for our teachers. So we have a partnership with the Danielson group. We've been training our mentors and coaches over the past 2 years in that framework to have those coaching conversations. So within our school, we have those, support structures for those teachers to make sure that they are equipped with the tools that they need to be successful for that program, for that school. And it is can be very drastically different depending on which of our schools that they will be in.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that good explanation. Appreciate that. Any other questions from the committee members? Okay, Ketcher, we can go on to the next two.
We're on standards 9 and 10. Standards 9 and 10 of the elementary application.
During the presentation, there was significant discussion of the leadership opportunities that the candidates would be provided and how that is going to be a significant part of the work within the with the partners. I just didn't see that identified clearly in the application, so that was a concern that I had. But I'm glad that we've got that, that our districts are aware of that and see that and explain the opportunities for leadership so well. It is hard as a teacher in this kind of a program to find opportunities for leadership, but they're there and they have to experience it. And it's important for the university and the districts to know and help what those opportunities are and help those teachers exercise that leadership that builds their confidence.
I couldn't agree.
Anybody else have any questions?
Just Member Peasley, and just to add to that, I couldn't agree more in terms of sometimes it's just a question. You know, where do you plan to be doing in 5 years? Where do you see yourself leading this school or this district? I mean, it's sometimes just a simple question that they look at you and then go, you think I could do that? Until you plant that seed. I think that's part of our job as educators, to inspire them always in their professional growth. So I appreciate those comments of yours.
Okay, thank you.
Can you point to a
Catcher?
specific learning activity or assignment that asks teachers to focus on developing a vision for their own leadership, or reflecting on their leadership, or ethics, or collaboration with others?
I can't point to one just right now, but I know, like I shared before, with those assignments throughout those shared syllabi, there is quite a bit of area for reflection. A lot of what we're wanting our candidates to do is take what they're practicing in the classroom or what's happening within their school district, and then speak to that, reflect, and then share what they feel they best meet in terms of whatever that requirement or that prompt would be. So I can't think of just one, but I know we provide quite a bit of reflection for our students to really think about what they're experiencing in their classroom.
So I guess my question would be then, what are they reflecting on if there's no initial baseline then for them to be reflecting?
Well, the reflection is part of the assignment. So
and that's why I'm asking for the assignment.
We can certainly go and because they're threaded throughout a lot of the courses, focusing on some of those specific areas, but it was also really embedded in also that boot camp at the end to help them think about what's next. So I think you'll see that really contained there. So you have, I don't have it up, Member Aragon, and I know Carol's probably there looking, but in terms of the overall design and our discussions in building this program, one of the thoughts was, why would you even have a boot camp at the end? What's the idea of a boot camp at the end? And it's really was for that purpose, to launch them to be thinking about their growth and the next steps. And not necessarily doing that at that very beginning stages, because we want to build, again, their capacity and don't want to overwhelm them, but plant those seeds throughout. And so the boot camp originally was designed with that in mind. But I can go back and have the team, look and provide you the specific example or thread to that.
And remember, Aragon, as a note as well, for all of our students, we're not just done with candidates or any of our GCU students when they complete their program. We have something called the GCU Promise that helps to then support them throughout. So at any time, if one of our candidates were teaching within that first year or that second or third year within their school district, and they felt they wanted more information, more instructional strategies, even more information regarding a path for them throughout their profession, we could provide that for them as well through that promise.
How is that promise, like what meaningful learning experience do you all put in place to introduce that promise and to have candidates reflect on it?
Well, I will let Dr. LaPrade speak to the bookends, as she calls them, because she speaks to it so well. But we have a pledge and a promise that I'll let her speak more to.
So I was actually a recipient, if you will, or when I graduated back in my day, it was called the guarantee statement. And basically said, you know, if you need assistance for any reason during your first year of teaching at the request of the district school or the teacher candidate, the student, the college will provide support. And when I became dean, actually I was assistant dean, I think at the time, I wanted to realize that again, it had kind of gone away in our history. I could trace it back to 1984, but somewhere around 2004 kind of went away when GCU was struggling. And so President Mueller was really pretty amazing when it's my idea and wanting to support it, because we didn't know at the time, you know, what would be the cost, if you will. And I said, I really, we need to do this. We need to support our candidates because we don't know what they're going to get or where they're going to go. And they need to know that if they're not comfortable going to their principal and saying, I don't know what to do with this student, or, you know, I just need to talk to somebody, they need to know that we're here for them. So we came back with the promise in 2009. It's forward facing, it's on our website. The school, the superintendent, the principal, the student can request it at any time. We've had a variety of requests. 90+% of them is really a phone call to talk someone off the ledge and that faculty support. And they get that individual faculty support. Tracy Vasquez on our team, COE team, manages what we call our promise teachers if they call, because we hold that promise very near and dear. And so it has been everything from coaching and mentoring to offering refresher courses to actually providing a university supervisor go to the site and kind of see what's going on, provide an action plan. So it's kind of just been a variety through the years. About in 2011 or 12, as we were talking about the promise, I wanted a way for our students to understand up front that they also, the reason we could offer this promise was, yes, we have great programs. Yes, we have amazing faculty. We know schools give them a lot of support, but we also have great students, and they need to understand at the front what their part is in it. So we now have a pledge and a promise for every student that's in any one of our licensure programs. The pledge is really about the ethics and dispositions of what it means to be a teacher, that you will be professional, you will be prepared, that every child deserves a great teacher. And the promise is that we're going to support you at the end. And so that thread and that continuum is very important. And the reason we can offer it is because we have great programs, we have great faculty, we have great district partners, and we have great students. Because otherwise, if we didn't have any of those, it would bankrupt us, right? I mean, there's no way we could support it if they weren't prepared. We don't want to offer a program that we're not going to be able to support them. I mean, that would just not make any sense. So that's kind of the history between the promise and the pledge and how it came about. And we will not offer a program for licensure without it. Even our ed admin, we added it. It wasn't there in the past, but it's there now.
And that pledge is example appendix 1, section 8, if you're looking for it.
Yeah, the pledge is great. I'm trying to understand. I get everything about the philosophy, and I love it. It's great that you all took the time to develop that. What I'm looking for is, how do we know that your candidates, your teacher candidates, like what is the meaningful learning experience? How are they exposed to the pledge? Is it like a separate class? Is it like an online module? Do they reflect on that pledge? Do they like write an essay about it? How do you like, what if someone's like, this pledge is stupid and I don't want to, this sounds ridiculous to me. I would never actually implement any of this stuff in my classroom. Like, how do you know someone doesn't feel that way? Like I guess I'm just wondering, like, what's the meaningful learning experience that your students are going through with the pledge? And then like, what's the evaluative process for making sure that they're following the ethics, or that they're committed to the ethics that you all are laying out?
So we follow the National Model Code of Ethics that was collaboratively developed through NASDAQ. And it's instituted at the very beginning. They have a little ethics quiz. And then throughout their program, it's kind of touched upon throughout, and again through what would be student teaching, or in this case, that final boot camp before they launch, they would hear about it at that point as well. So it's much like the technology standards. Remember, Aragon, you know, there's not a technology course. It used to be. When I went through, I had instructional technology. It's not anymore, because technology changes so much, but we have the ISTE standards that are embedded throughout the course. So we have that approach with those foundational pieces, and then it's addressed again at the end of the program.
So is it more of just like an exposure to the ethics as opposed to like maybe some deep work with them?
No, I wouldn't say just exposure, no. Lindy, do you, okay.
Sure. Yeah, our students get that awareness of that model code of ethics throughout their coursework, and it's really kind of threaded throughout. So it could be hit on through a discussion question, it could be kind of weaved into an assignment piece, but it's really throughout the 4 courses, and then all of our courses on that larger scale for our teacher licensure programs.
We specifically develop scenarios also. So it's not just, oh, I know that we have this model code of ethics and I've read it and it's at this very high level of awareness, but they actually have to speak to or address different scenarios, and which dispositions and or ethic components are part of that as well.
And Steve, I'm sorry, I'm gonna put you on the spot for a minute, but just as I think a good example, Steve actually brought in some specific training that was related to bias and equity last year for his staff. If you remember, we had Justin Campbell come out to your staff. So you want to speak to that too, just like I think as districts also are recognizing both district-wide and individual needs, they intervene as well.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we see from a lot of our schools is that student populations are shifting, undergoing all kinds of different stressors, different populations, different needs, and teachers there's nothing in a teacher program to really prepare them for a lot of this stuff. So we had a school that said, we need some sort of like training because of the diverse demographics that are shifting in our school, of how to have certain conversations, looking at, terminology. So we contracted with GCU, brought some trainers in because we had teachers that just hadn't worked with certain populations of students. And we talked about things like those students and, just phrasing like that. And it was about culture shift in the school and preparing those teachers, because there is so much that they need to handle. So the principal contacted me and said, I'm getting a lot of questions from teachers that they're not sure how to have conversations with students, or I have concerns about attitudes and things that I'm hearing. So we worked with GCU to bring in a trainer, did a full day session. The principal did follow up conversations and monitoring, particularly with teachers that seem to be struggling with some of these concepts, to ensure that we are all in for all students. I mean, here at EdKey, our motto is where every child is known. And we take that to heart, that every teacher knows every student personally, knows what those challenges are, and is able to develop that constructive relationship with that student. It's part of, you're not going to be on Team EdKey if this isn't part of your approach to teaching. If you want to show up and just close your door and do your thing, you're not going to last here. It's very much about culture, community, putting student needs first, teacher needs second, because we're here for the kids first. So that's part of the the things that we collaborate with in terms of with GCU and training. And in terms of the follow-up support for new teachers, I mean, this is something that to me is just one of these other blessings, because I've seen so many teachers that come in out of a teacher prep program, whether it's traditional certification or something else, and they walk into this classroom with this illusion, I'm supposed to know everything. And I have to tell them, no, there's no way you're going to know everything. And it's okay to admit you don't know how to handle these situations. We need to be able to support you, because you're not going to anticipate, and no program is ever going to be able to prepare you for, you're now out in this suburban area and you've got a kid that's cutting themselves. There's nothing in any program that's prepared you for that. You didn't know you were going to walk into that situation, and that they may be reluctant to talk to us, but knowing that they have somebody back there at GCU that they can go to say, I wasn't sure how to handle this, or I'm not yet, particularly those first couple months. But we haven't built those relationships. They may not be comfortable coming to their school leader or coming to me saying, I'm not sure how to handle this. They've built those relationships with their professors at GCU to say, hey, here's something that we never covered. What suggestions do you have? So that additional lifeline for me is vital to the survival of some of these teachers. Some are going to walk in knowing that they don't know, and they are going to say, I came through this alternate pathway. There's a lot I don't know, and they will be right on our doors saying, hey, I wasn't prepared for this, help me out, and we will embrace those. But we need to account for all contingencies, and for me, this is sort of our relationship with GCU has been just fundamental in ensuring that all of our teachers, whether they're first year or their 5th and 10th year, that we're getting them the support and services that they need. And to me, this is just, that's where schools are. We have to have multiple pathways to support these teachers.
Everyone, Steve, thank you for providing that. And I hate to try to stymie what is a good discussion, especially one that for our board anyways, when we talk about things like ethics, of course, our board is charged with imposing discipline on certified educators. And so that's something that, of course, is near and dear to a lot of board members' hearts. And of course, discussions around equity are also, at the top of everyone's mind, including part of the mission of the board. However, we are scheduled to end at noon today, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So I think I would probably encourage us to move along here, as we're only about halfway through the first application. And on top of that, I still need a couple minutes to evaluate and review the scores. And then, of course, committee members need some time to discuss and make a motion and all that. So I don't want to just chop off the discussion, but Madam Chair, I think I would probably encourage us to try to move on here and hopefully move along if possible.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. Are there any other questions on those points? Then we can move on to the next items.
Sure. Next is the application and review process and the enrollment application forms.
I can report that I didn't have any questions about any of the rest of the rubric.
I concur.
Same.
Okay, and I saw a thumbs up from Member Garcia, and I see some nodding and a yes from Member Robledo and Member Reedy. Okay, so with that, I think we will just move on over to, so that was the elementary application. So we'll move on to the secondary one. And I see Member Peasley utilizing the reactions ability on Zoom. I like it, I appreciate it, with the thumbs up.
That and applause.
There we go. Okay, so now we're on the secondary application. And again, some of this bleeds over. So I'm imagining we could probably skip past areas of certification and financial stability. But I do want to pause real quick here. Okay. And then the standards portion, standards 1 through 10. I think I'll just sort of take those as a group. If there's anything in the secondary application in the standards 1 through 10 that anybody has any comments, questions, or concerns about. I know there were some in the elementary side that bled over to the secondary. I've made a note that those are sort of applying to both.
Yeah, that was standard 2 for me.
Yeah, my content concern.
Standard 10. I'm sorry.
No,
Member Aragon, go ahead.
Same content concerns. But other than that, I have no other comments or questions.
The leadership in standard 10, I had flagged, and that was it. And it was the same as in the elementary application. And that has been addressed very well by the partners.
Okay.
Member Reedy, anybody else have any questions? No? Okay.
Next, we have the application
like
review process.
Well,
Sorry, what was that, Madam Chair?
Just so, Madam Chair, I have no other concerns to the rest of the application I think need to be addressed.
Same here.
Great, thank you. Member Reedy, Member Robledo, Member Garcia, any other questions? No, we're good to go then. Catcher, if you can go on to the our next phase. That's the your tally.
Yes, the tallying phase. Members here and our friends at GCU, here's what we want to do. For the committee members, I'd like you to send me your scores if you have not done so already. And I will tally those up if you could email them to me. Remember, Aragon, I think you had a Google sheet that you shared with me. So whenever you feel that's good to go, just give me a thumbs up. Same if anybody else. Okay, so I will, remember Aragon, I'll grab your stuff. Member Garcia, I just saw yours come in and I already had them from members Robledo and Member Peasley. So Member Reedy, I just need from you. What we'll do right now is we will show the assembly agenda right when we pull it up here. Staff will mute everybody and we'll still be in the live meeting. It'll still be live streamed, but we'll just kind of be like on an unofficial break. I think when we mute you, you'll probably be able, oh, there we go. And Melissa's pulling up the screen share. Thank you, Melissa. When we mute you, I think you'll have the ability to unmute yourself, and just be aware we're still live streaming. So just be careful about anything like that, but we'll go on a quick break right now as I tabulate, and then I'll come back, but we're still live. So just be aware of that, and try to keep any discussion. Please don't have any discussion, frankly, because I want to make sure we stick to the agenda and we don't, go too far afield. So sit tight with me for a minute as I try to tabulate this up, and then I'll be back. Thank you, everyone. Does anybody have any questions on that, by the way? Okay, great. Thank you. Everyone sit tight. Okay, everyone, I'm going to give you a sort of a time check warning here that we'll come back at 11:45. So that's either 2 or 3 minutes. For some reason, my two phones say it's 2 different times, but 11:45, we'll come back. Okay, everyone, it is 11:45, and we'll circle back now. Did receive all of the scores from all our committee members. Again, thank you for taking the time to review all of that and provide your scores. I know that's a lot of work. I know there's a lot going on there. The average scores for elementary and secondary were the same for both, although there were some differences within those scores, but the average overall program score for both was the same, and it was a 2.025. And just as a reminder, of course, the committee members know, because you're going from 0 to 3, a 2 overall is generally considered a meets. And I think actually, in addition, I think a 2.025 is actually one of the higher scores that this committee has given to an application. So with that, I think I would provide the committee members one more opportunity. If you had any comments or concerns or anything else that you wanted to express. But otherwise, I think that with not being too presumptuous, but based on the score, I think it would probably be appropriate if somebody wanted to make a motion to recommend, and I can repeat this if you'd like, so don't worry, but to recommend to the State Board of Education approval of GCU's Alternative Educator Preparation Program application in elementary and secondary education. But before we get to that motion, Madam Chair, I think it's appropriate if anybody had any last things that they wanted to mention before we get that motion, or a different motion. Frankly, it doesn't have to be that, but that was a suggestion.
I think that's a good motion, and the only comment I'd like to add is thank you very much, GCU, for your persistence in bringing forth this application and the work that you've done on this. And congratulations to the partner districts for making your efforts and close work with GCU on this process. It certainly is an important process as we are facing so many teacher shortages. And it's good to see this kind of tight collaboration between partners and the university. as chair, I don't know that I can make the motion. So if somebody would like to move.
Madam Chair, you can make the motion if you'd like.
All right, then I move that what Catcher said. Thank you.
And just to repeat, that's a so that's a motion to for the committee to recommend to the State Board of Education approval of Grand Canyon University's alternative educator preparation program application for elementary and secondary education. So we'll need a second.
I'll second.
Member Reedy with the second. I think we'll do a roll call vote just because that's also easier virtually than it is in person. So
yeah.
Okay. So for a roll call vote, I'm sorry, normally I have it alphabetically. So that means, and then
point of order,
Aragon.
is there a discussion, please?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yep. Go ahead. Yes.
So my scores from the first time that we reviewed this application back in February were less than 1. After all of the revisions and the conversation today, my scores average out to a 1.8. So a huge increase, but not for me above a 2. Well, I see a lot of strengths here. The places where I'm seeing gaps are in the areas of content, are in the area of ethics and leadership. And I think that given that that's where I potentially see gaps, those places are really important. And even if I, give strong scores someplace else, like forms and enrollment and things like that, that's not the heart of teaching. Heart of teaching is content. Heart of teaching is application of that content. And I just don't, what I heard a lot from the applicants was, well, we're going to do that somewhere, or we're going to talk about that somewhere. Or I promise you, our LEAs, they talk about that somewhere. And I find it disheartening when I ask for, like, can you just point to one assignment where they talk about ethics? Can you just show me where this, how this is introduced? And I couldn't get a specific answer to that. I find it worrisome. I think that GCU does a fantastic job of preparing teachers through its normal certification process. I've hired many of them myself, and they've been great teachers. But I also know that my role on this committee is to be an advocate for the students of Arizona, and make sure that I'm operating in a way that's going to push programs to put the best trained people in front of them. And I just don't feel like I'm seeing that right now from this application. So I can't in good conscience vote for this motion.
Any further discussion? Okay, Member Garcia?
I vote aye. I too share Member Aragon's concerns. I think mine are more founded on the stressors that are put on local school districts to kind of carry the load of educators that come in. And with everything else they're carrying, it's just another added layer. And so, I'm traditional EPP programs do give a little bit more time for folks to focus on stuff, and the hurry to fill these gaps that our students so desperately need. Sometimes we skip over some of these really relevant skill sets that are needed to be great professionals. But I do vote aye. I think the program has done a lot of work from our prior application. I too have concerns about content and leadership, but I'm hoping you took some of our interests and that some amendments can be made in the program. But I do trust GCU. I had several student teachers from GCU in my classroom, and they came prepared and did excellent. So thank you.
Thank you. Member Reedy?
My vote will be aye, and I'm not going to restate what Members Garcia and Member Aragon shared. I do think that they spoke eloquently about some of the gaps, But I do have a lot of faith and trust in GCU to address those with this teacher preparation program. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Robledo.
And my vote is aye.
Member Aragon.
Nay.
And Chair Peasley.
Aye. And I just wanted to say that as an administrator who had to take advantage of every single support in that GCU promise for teachers that I have worked with, that GCU promise is an incredible resource for anybody who comes from this program. They utilize, my teachers have utilized all the professors coming out to the classroom, to additional tutoring, to additional support, to sitting with teachers and helping them write IEPs, to assigning tutors, and then that followed on for months. And so I feel very good about that guarantee, standing behind the recommendations and suggestions that we have made. So thank you.
Okay. And with that, the motion passes 4 ayes and 1 nay. So that means that we're done with this agenda item. For the GCU folks on the phone, I'll be in touch with you on logistics for what's coming next. The next board meeting is August 21st, and we can touch base about, you know, what's to be expected or what you do or don't need to do or what have you. Or if you have any questions for me, you know, we can touch base either later today or next week. For the committee members, the next up on the agenda is future meeting dates and items for future agendas. We don't have any more future meeting dates or future agendas for this committee. We had talked about it a bit before. With this committee, the board adopted a rule that shifted the review of these programs back to the Department of Ed, which is actually where it was just a few years ago. So that means this committee is now going to be disbanded. So I wanted to thank you on behalf of the board for what you've done over these last few years. It's been a lot of work, I know, and I know we kind of hit the ground running there, and with a wide variety of different applications from different applicants. We had 2 classroom-based, several alt prep program applications, including this one from an in-state university. So I really appreciate what you've done, and I will follow up after this meeting with an email to you, because I do need an address, because I have some stuff I need to send you. So I think we might have had your address on the application, but I just need a confirmation from you on a good address to send you those materials. But we really do appreciate it, and I think we don't talk about it enough. But you all, the people who help serve on these committees, both the formal committees that we have like this one and our informal ones, you guys are really the ones that help drive a lot of the work of the board, because, and you do it without compensation. You do it with, frankly, just a thanks from staff on a YouTube call and you know, maybe a letter of recommendation if you need one. I don't know how much weight our letters of recommendation carry, but maybe that's a little conceited of us to think that they do. So we really do appreciate it. And like I said, I'll follow up with an email so we can get some addresses from you so we can send those materials to you just as a follow-up. But so thank you.
And Catcher, if I may, just thank you for all the time and effort that you put on behalf of this application twice. And I know it's a lot of work and time on your part. And I do want to assure you, as a personal promise to you all, that your input does make a difference. It made a difference on the first submission from a 1.0 or however it was. So you saw significant increases. We're going to take those same comments to heart. Member Aragon, we will pull out that content literacy and how we can better speak to it. Your special education, your inclusion comment, Madam Chair, all of those comments, the ethics and leadership, you will see a difference when we go to the board.
Maybe I'll get lucky and I'll have some students, some teachers in your program.
Well, and
That
now
would be
that all the
lovely.
vote is done, and I'm not bribing any of you, we always need subject matter experts, especially in special education. So if you want to come and help us revise some of those questions, that would be wonderful.
Yes, reach out to me anytime, please. We need them.
Oh, no, I was thinking about in the schools, districts, and the charters that I support, I would have some of your candidates. But thank you very much. I appreciate
Well, we appreciate the districts, the schools for being here to support us. And at the end, they are the ones that take our candidates and really grow them into master teachers. Because no matter the preparation program, you cannot be a master teacher at the end of that program. So it really takes the schools to elevate that work, that foundation. And I think this program has that capability to do that, to realize it. It takes time. I don't know of a teacher through any program that's been a master teacher in the first 3 years. So, you know, it does take the village for sure. And we are very, very blessed to have amazing schools and districts work alongside us in that work to grow them.
And Catcher, I have enjoyed my time on this committee, but I will not be sad to see it disbanded. It was a lot of work.
Yes, I know. And that I know, member Aragon, I know we had some conversations about it, and that was part of the reason we engaged the department about. That was one of the reasons we engaged the department about, you know, kind of rethinking how this was structured. I do not think that when the board originally adopted this rule and process, they thought that they understood the scope and the amount of work. But yeah, I hear you.
All right, thanks all.
Well, Kristen, Joshua, Marisol.
Thank you for the opportunity, y'all. It's been a pleasure working with you.
It has been great. Learned a lot. Thank you all. Take care, everybody, and be well, be safe.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye all.
Bye.
All right, thanks everyone. We'll adjourn at noon.